I don't want to say downfall. I feel like downfall feels harsh, right? But like, it's certainly not the Brazil that everyone think. Like when you think Brazil and the football they play, and they're what the most successful national team in the world.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on with them?
It's individuals, isn't it? It's individuals. And I believe it started with Neymar, not to discredit Neymar, but there was an over-reliance on Neymar to carry that team for a while. And, you know, he did the best he could. But at that time, there weren't enough stars around him to take Brazil to that next level or keep them at the level that we remember with Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, Rivaldo, those types of players. I don't know. Is it a lack of harmony? Is it the fact that they are just individual superstars and that kind of Brazilian culture isn't still as embedded in that team? Because when you think about those past teams, those Brazilian teams were so Brazilian. Like, you had to understand their culture. You know, you had to really, really know about Brazil and Jogo Bonito and adverts and all this kind of stuff. We learned about what it was like to be a Brazilian footballer. I'm not so sure we know much about Brazilian culture today.
So that's a really interesting point, because I was actually doing a little bit of research and chatting to a couple of Brazilians before we came in today, and they were actually saying something really similar. Now, I think it was between the years of 2013 and 2016, I don't know what the official name for it is, but essentially like the Brazilian FA
Right.
scheduled Brazil's games throughout those 3 years, and I've got it here. So they played 30 games in those 3 years. Only 17 were actually even played in Brazil.
Really?
That, to add to that, as I've remembered, includes a World Cup that was played in Brazil. So 7 of those games of the 17, they had to play because the World Cup was there anyway. So you sort of remove those 7 from the factor anyway. And that's 10 games in 3 years that they've even played in their own country.
A third of the games, yeah.
Wow.
And so a lot of Brazilians, or certainly the Brazilians that I've been speaking to, was sort of saying we just didn't feel like we had any connection to the national team.
That's damn.
And I think it goes deeper than that as well, because like you look at like the old successful teams, and whether it be Cafu or Roberto Carlos, Rivaldo, even, I don't know, players like Gilberto Silva, for example, they all played like quite a big chunk of their career in Brazil. And so it sort of gave,
We literally said this on the way up.
And so it gave those guys time to almost be idolised by the people in their own country. Whereas now you are, well, look, Brazil's biggest star at the minute, Vini Jr., players like that who are leaving to go to Europe before they really hit like 21. And so there's no time for them to be idolised because they're already in Europe playing for the biggest teams. And look, Vini's a great player. He deserves to play for Real Madrid, not taking anything away from him. But is he ever going to be as idolised by those fans as some of those old boys? And I think it's just like the disconnect that's sort of been brought within them as a nation could play part of a reason.
I mean,
why.
you both got it spot on. I don't think I need to add anything more, but that's essentially what I put it down to. It's kind of similar with, you know, what I have said in the past about England, for example. The lack of players playing in different countries and bringing different things to the table. Well, that's for England. But talking about Brazil now, I think they're leaving Brazil way too early. We're seeing the likes of Chelsea now signing all of these Brazilian players at 15, 16, 17. Oh, but they're going to come in 2026 or 2027. No, let them stay in Brazil. Let them develop in Brazil. Like you said, let the fans create that connection with that player. Because even if you look at Neymar, he only came to Barcelona when he was 21. So even when he did break out, he'd played a long time for Santos.
He was a high-profile player before.
Like, we've all known about Neymar playing for Santos, and we've seen the reels and the YouTube videos at the time that we watched over and over and over again. Nowadays, these players come to Europe at the age of 15, 16, so they don't even have time to form that connection in life, not forget football, in life with their country. And whereas Europe, you see that, you know, we've got talents here in England. They form that connection with England. They form that connection with the Premier League or wherever they play in the footballing pyramid. In Brazil, I don't feel like that's happening. And I think that's what's damaging the national team. I always say, I say this to my friends, I say Brazilians are too preoccupied with being Europeanized. They want to look and play like Europeans. No, the very reason why we like you is because you play the way you played. Jogo Bonito, like the players we've all mentioned. Just keep that playing style, and you can see it in the national team. Brazil used to be all about tricks and flicks and samba and all of that. Now you're looking like a Pep team now.
Yeah,
you're trying to play like Pep.
That was actually my next point. But you said that some of the Brazilian players maybe want to play like European players or European style of football. I don't think it's that. I think they were plucked so early that you're looking at Brazilian European players. You're looking at players who were trained in the European styles of football, and we're talking 2025 when the majority of the world plays a certain style of football, styles of football that Pep has coined and whatnot. These are European styles. It somewhat sucks the joy out of football. How many times have we talked about not seeing flair players and all these maverick players? They come once in a while, and those players, they tend to get stifled in these teams that are playing system football. And I think the biggest sufferers of that are Brazil.
So you're saying it's being coached out of them?
Absolutely, almost. Because they're coming to Europe from a young age, and they're playing for these big teams, and it's absolutely being coached out of them. And there's one man I blame for Brazil's downfall, and his name is Florentino Perez. That man has done irreparable damage to the nation of Brazil. Wow. There's a very stupid meme of him running around with a child catcher's net in the streets of Brazil, just getting young kids, turning them into superstars. But then they go to Madrid and they do stay as superstars, but like look at Endrick, brought in so young. That boy is going to be the most European player we've ever seen. Once he's fully into the Real Madrid system and he's playing week in, week out, that's not going to be a Brazilian player.
True.
And they've lost that. And I don't know how long these boys have been in their countries to keep that culture around them. I don't mean to go on a tangent, but I spent time with the Ghana national team. There are a couple of UK diaspora boys like me, UK Ghanaians, in the team, right? But you have to have a nucleus of people who are born and bred that country and are the leaders in that team.
Yes.
Because there are just certain things and certain things that need to be known as a team, as a culture, to go out and play your best football. And also knowing that you're playing for people in your home country. You're not a UK African, you're not a UK Brazilian, you are from this country. So yeah, I mean, there's a level of having the sand in your toes in Brazil for a few years longer that I think needed to happen. I go back to that Jogo Bonito advert where they're doing flicks and tricks in the changing room. That could have taken a few takes, but it didn't look like it took a few takes.
Absolutely
it didn't look like that.
No, it looked like it was one take.
Ronaldinho kicking the ball to one of his teammates and then flicking his boot off. I mean, I don't know if you could do a couple of takes of that. You have to know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think culture is the main thing, and it's funny that you've corroborated that story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, to be fair as well, Aaron, what you touched on it a little bit with the England thing, and the sort of like pressures that come with that, and I think that's such like a real thing for particularly this squad of players who are struggling. We've seen them fail miserably in the recent Copa America. They go out in the quarterfinals, and bearing in mind there's no round of 16 in the Copa America. It just goes straight to the quarterfinals. So it's first knockout stage gone. What were we talking about here? So we've got the final on home soil, the Copa America before that, the 2021 one.
Yeah, they lost to Argentina.
They got to the final, lost to Argentina. They're playing that one in Brazil. That's again, it goes back to that thing of you're on home, so you really should be winning that match. And then obviously the last two World Cups, I think, were both quarter-final exits as well. So tournament-wise, certainly big tournament-wise, they've not done that well. And so the longer you go without bringing something home, probably the bigger the expectation gets. And like we say, we sort of goes back to England, and we spoke about it a little bit last podcast, Miles, to be fair, when I was saying the thing with England is because we've not won anything since '66, there is always this growing expectation, and the longer it goes on, the bigger it gets, and it sort of feels that even now, if we get to a final and don't win it, it's a massive failure.